Focus group 3 is going to talk about, like it says here, book access services and convenience facilities. One of the things that's most interesting is the notion of these self-checkout stations. It seems like a great way to come to the library, be able to check your books out without having to wait in line, without having to deal with those other issues. Have any of you got any insights or thoughts about the self-checkout stations? Yeah.
The only thing I say is a problem with them is that they need more explanation when things aren't working right. I mean, it just kind of freezes up and says, go home now. And so then you end up going to the desk anyway. So it should say, this is what the problem is, move over there, or go to the children's area, or
Okay.
you know, hold on, whatever.
Okay. But I haven't used the self-checkout here, but it seems that you just put the book in and it does the reading.
It
and
has to find the barcode.
Has to find the barcode.
Sometimes it's inside the book and sometimes it's on the back.
Okay.
But once you get the hang of it, it's not a
Okay.
big deal.
Um,
And it alerts you whether your book's on hold that you should.
oh, yeah. Or if you've got library fines, does it do that?
I don't know, I never had one.
Because that would be a great resource to essentially tell you everything about yourself, whether you have issues with the library or...
Well, it must. Maybe
It
it
must do
prevents
that.
people from checking books out.
If you have enough of a library fine, I think it won't let you check that.
Yeah, yeah.
But actually, the confidentiality aspect is quite enjoyable.
Mhm.
I can think of times where I knew the person who was checking
Mhm.
me out, and I didn't necessarily want them to see what we were checking out.
Hey, you're reading that today, huh? Yeah.
And it's nice that you can do that. And
Mhm. One of the things that has been discussed previously in another one of these meetings is that the self-checkout area becomes kind of a social point where people are meeting each other. Oh, you're here today, you know. And so, have you experienced that, or do you kind of, you know, well, have you experienced that?
You mean congestion around the...
Well, congestion.
Yeah, a little bit.
Have you yourself gone out to a checkout stand and sort of met someone else? And it seems kind of a social point, but... Okay.
you know what we haven't discussed? Printing.
Oh,
I don't see that on any, like, are there printing stations conceived? How much does printing
Yeah, that's-
cost? Because with stuff becoming more digitalized,
mhm.
that would be, or that you can use a,
Are you able to, you're able to print in here at Web Alley, is that right? If there are printers and you can print, okay. It's an interesting question though. If I come in with my computer, laptop, how would I print?
yes,
Yeah.
is that available?
I don't think it is right now, but it would be a nice resource.
You can, if you put it on a flash drive or something like that, you can ask the librarian
And he'll
to
just print it.
network it to the printer.
Okay.
But it's not real convenient.
Well, that's probably a good solution, you know, that you would get it on a flash drive and take that over to...
It almost seems like flash drives should be for sale, or in a vending machine. I see a vending machine.
Yep.
Flash drives and vending machines. So someone who's using the Web Alley can then, instead of printing
They do.
on
They do have
quantity.
one sale nowadays.
They do?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're real cheap too nowadays.
Do you like self-checkout better than the old way?
Yes.
Yes.
I even like it at Albertsons.
Oh yeah, there you go. I do that all the time.
You know, I don't do it at the store, but I like it at the library. I don't like doing money, I guess.
It's a big improvement.
I just am wondering tangentially, is there not an issue of competition with the private sector? You know how people are always saying you can't be in competition with the private sector with public funding stuff? Wouldn't printing and showers and stuff like that sort of raise those
I was
issues?
thinking about the tools when you're mentioning that.
Yeah, well, actually, the movies do, and the library has been under attack by movie rental places.
Uh-huh.
And there's been a policy to not necessarily rent the bestseller movies, but more the educational type movies or the classics, to not be in competition.
They want to do the same thing they did to PBS.
Well, the local, I don't want to see this happen, but odds are the local rental places are going to disappear as it all becomes Netflix and
Right.
You just download it, yeah.
and so they won't be after the local library.
But it is a question, and it will always be an issue with these.
Does it
And
come up, do people bring that up with the library?
apparently they do with the movies, and I would suspect with printing it's not quite the biggest issue, because if you go to, because it's location based. For instance, FedEx has its headquarters in downtown. So I suspect if the library was to draw business from downtown, that would be an issue. But obviously FedEx is kind of a personal business center, and you can go in there and print, obviously, for charge. And there would have to be some sort of charge, I think, for anyone to print at the library, because there are real costs associated with that.
Well, you're generally not coming to the library to print.
No.
You're printing something at the library.
It's like,
Different.
it's just like the photocopy machines, they're not free.
I'm thinking like the gentleman who was here, he's gone, he was saying an hour was not enough on the computer. He's doing like volume of job applications.
Oh.
And if he doesn't have a computer at home, he would need copies of those applications that he filed electronically, so he had a personal copy and that type of thing. Whereas what I do if I'm using the computer here is I just email to myself copies of whatever I did here, and then I have them on my own computer. Or put it on a flash drive. But if he doesn't have a computer, I mean, I'm trying to think of the people who don't have a computer and come here to use the computer, they might have printing needs.
And some of those I think are addressed now in the web alley, but clearly if you're out anywhere with a laptop in the building, you want to go somewhere and get a copy, that's an issue.
Especially if we're going to provide laptops within the building.
How about your experience with photocopy machines? Anyone had any experience you want to relate to us relative to that? Seems like they're in one location, probably in reference area.
They're still coin operated.
And they're coin operated, yeah.
That's
Do you think,
old school.
so if you were to change the interface to credit card kind of thing?
Or a debit card. that
Debit
we
card,
buy.
yeah. A little, like riding the bus or something where you, a BART for instance, where you charge up yeah.
I haven't liked needing to go to the front desk and bother people for
Do you?
change,
Yeah.
which is the way it's been.
Yeah.
Also, you're limited how much you can do with always like putting in the coin, and it's
Yeah.
noisy.
Yeah, there's a noise factor. Okay.
I like the fact they've got a large format printer up there, so you can print photocopy maps.
How large can you go with that? Okay. Because that's interesting. That would be something that a library could provide, that'd be clear need, large format. Someone mentioned earlier larger screens that you could hook up to and that sort of thing. It seems like, again, photocopies, prints, things like that are going to have to be on a charge basis. There's no way you can do it free. Obviously, people will abuse it if it was free. Vending machines are that, we've clearly got the soda machine out here on the sidewalk. Are there other vending machines in the building? Or do you see another need for a different type of vending machine?
Yes, I've wanted to buy a candy bar from time to time.
Okay.
I just can't do it.
That's a good note. Vending machines could also provide things like flash drives or
Cell phones, disposable cell phones. I've seen those in California. They have vending machines with disposable cell phones and other electronic
Wow.
devices.
What is this one?
paper.
Pencil.
Yeah, a
Disposable
pencil.
cameras.
Disposable cameras. Yeah.
Canes, as we baby booms get older.
Canes, yeah, disposable. Well, yeah, you put in $500 and get a wheelchair.
Actually,
Reading
you know,
glasses, right?
speaking of adapting the library for an aging population.
Oh, absolutely.
There's need for public address systems with audio capability or Bluetooth capability, so people with hearing aids can adjust their hearing aid to hear the speaker, and I don't know what else. I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's pretty clear a need for any of these meeting spaces, particularly an auditorium. Good point.
Is there wheelchair accessibility in Webb Valley? Is the
I think there is. I think there might be one. Rex, do you know?
I think they are. I think they all are.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Other than the stand-up ones, but.
Yeah, I think where we have a problem here is that technically the distance between the two doors here in the vestibule aren't far enough apart. And certainly the elevator's not as big as we'd like to have it for that. And certainly folks don't like necessarily coming off Main Street to use that platform lift. It's yeah. But that's a key component of this. Any new library has to be adaptable to that. We got some comments too that someone appreciated the large print collection here quite a lot, the large print books. I don't know how well they do on the Braille end here or that sort of thing. Certainly that would be a question.
electronic readers now, you can adapt the size of the type. So you may make large print obsolete in terms of
True.
physical books.
Yeah, you could make that letter on the page as large as the screen, so A, B, C, you could read it a few letters at a time.
They purchased one of those, by the way, I don't know.
Is that the Sony?
This year, I didn't,
Oh.
and I think they were experimenting whether or not it's something they could check out, but it's the thing you can just run over the page and it expands it on your computer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of a scanner.
yeah. I don't know if they decided if they're going to circulate it or not.
How are the Holds Reserve Book feature working here? I guess you're?
I use it a lot.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. The only problem I have is if you choose a book and it's not available, you put it on hold. But if you've neglected to look through all the other titles, all the other listings of the same title to find a paperback edition, which might be here, you have no way of knowing that you didn't have to wait and put it on hold in the library, that there was a paperback sitting
Okay.
in this library. So they haven't integrated the paperback and hardcover
Okay.
titles.
Are those kept in the same location?
No.
Okay.
But if you're doing the searching from home, it doesn't matter because you're not there anyway.
Sure. Any issues with library cards? Library card's a great thing. If a library card was also, again, back to my college experience, we had things called a CAT card. It was the Wildcats at the University of Arizona. And your CAT card was a credit card too, right? And the Saguaro Credit Union, they're in Tucson. So you could stock that thing up with bucks and use it in various places. It was your access into buildings because you just swipe it. It seems like the library card could be a little more like that. It could have some intelligence to it.
I was thinking, I wish the parking meters in town, rather than using coins, took cards. And if all the municipal services that are a pay-as-you-go situation were integrated on one card, the city and county.
That'd be neat. The Grizz card you can use in various restaurants, and maybe the library card could be a little bigger than it is. Particularly where you could come into a machine and stock up on, again, like a BART card, BART access, and put some money on it and then go around the photocopy machines. Yeah.
I had suggested that you make the Grizz card also a library card,
That's a good idea.
so they could be used in either place.
That's a great idea.
Or the students that go.
Because essentially you're just wanting a name, an address, and access. That's all a library card's about, and certainly you have that just integrating the Grizz card.
And the fact that the catalog at the university isn't part of the catalog system that we're part of here, it's
Neat.
a dumb idea that they're not presently integrated. You can't go onto our catalog and look at stuff from the university library, but you should.
Should do.
So that would work vice versa then?
And if you're a resident of the state of Montana, you're allowed to use the Mansfield Library to take books out. You don't have to be a student.
Oh my God!
There's a
But you
reason to
can't
integrate.
get any movies.
Right, you can't get the
Only let you take electronic stuff out.
Yeah.
You said link to the photocopy machine.
Mhm.
That would be nice.
How about link to voter registration?
That'd be fun too. If you get a library card,
Your
you're.
library card is your voter registration, you know what I mean, that there, the same number appears on both.
If you lose your card, you're sunk. It
I
does
think
everything.
it is to show my card. Oh, you mean it has all of the,
If you lose your card, you're
Yeah.
sunk because, it does everything.
it has too much.
If we set it up right, we can vote while we're checking out books.
You are voting by checking out books.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Accounts. I think there's an accounts area up here, and don't know how if any of you had any experience with that you want to relate to us, or sometimes there's some confidentiality issues. I don't know. You know, I'm just asking. Some libraries have places where you can be a little more. I suppose it's like we designed advanced imaging there at Community Hospital, and you can actually sit in a little booth and talk about your accounts and that sort of thing. Do you think there are privacy issues, or is that an issue?
When you say accounts, do you mean with like overdue?
Overdue books, yeah, fines, whatever.
I think in general, even at the reference desk, it would be nice if there was a little more privacy.
Okay. You don't have, none of you here have any experiences to relate to interfacing with the accounts or, okay, good. Cell phones. Let's talk about cell phones. Should the library be a cell phone free area?
Yes.
Got one yes vote? Some, okay. Got another one?
Oh, you mean free as in?
No, yeah, you cannot use your cell phone in the library.
I
Okay.
think you should be able to use your cell phone in the library in a private space.
Okay, a controlled, sound controlled, proper area.
A phone booth where you're using your own phone.
Okay.
I mean,
Obviously,
it's just a reality. People, their lives are such, many people have to be checking their messages and
Mhm.
making calls, and it's
Sure.
unrealistic to think that they don't.
But that's no different than having a payphone. I mean, that's not being in the library. Being in the library and sitting there using your cell phone
Well, that's what I'm
is
saying,
annoying.
is that they should build in this new facility.
that you go somewhere to use
Separate
it.
tiny space.
Mhm.
One
They
of the
can
things,
even have separate conversation rooms, a little room that holds two people who
Sure.
want to have a conversation, and it's soundproof.
sure. You know, what I really get upset about is those folks with Bluetooth technology, and they're kind of looking right at me, and they're having a phone conversation with somebody in Hawaii or something. And so that's disturbing, but it is a reality, and I think the library needs to accommodate that. I think, again, we were talking about zoning the library, and we can zone it according to noise levels, and that could be one of them, and dispersion of these little cell phone booths, cell phone areas. It could be very simple, like some of these little enclosures you get into at airports, where there's this little wraparound piece is actually an acoustical absorber. So if you've noticed that, that's what that is. That shiny metal thing with a hole in it, holes in it, and that's the kind of thing we could have. You go there and
Because rather than looking at it as a negative, it's also a positive for the library. For instance, once I couldn't get on the card catalog computer terminal because they were all in use. So I took out my cell phone, which has a browser, and I looked up the book on my cell phone and then went and got the book. And I didn't. So you can look at it as an extension of the technology in the library for people who have their own personal devices.
it's like the art museum here, and I haven't used it, but you can go in with your cell phone, dial up a number, and get some information on that painting that's in front of you.
What I'm hearing, though, is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure that anybody has any problem with anybody using one of these smart telephones
Silently.
for web or
Sure,
electronic connection,
silently.
as opposed to speaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's the speaking that's the problem.
it's the oral, yeah, the
That's
sound
why I
part.
suggested
Yep.
the phone booths.
Yep. No, that's correct. Because a BlackBerry is just another information interface. Yep. It's just when that interface suddenly becomes verbal.
That's what I'm saying. Two people having a loud conversation in the library is just as annoying as listening to someone on the phone.
Yeah.
And those people should have a place to go too. I mean, I'm wondering if there's a talk zone or a, you know.
Well, there can be, again, referring
conversation room or something.
back to this, my reading on this Kapolani Library in Hawaii. That's what this media television area is all about. That's where a lot of that noise is meant to happen. And so they've made provisions for it to happen right there as you come in, and you walk away from all that racket into the quieter parts of the library. To me, that's a neat idea. You're going to allow that to happen and provide a space for it. Zoning, acoustical zoning is a great idea.
Can I back up a second
Sure.
and just say on the subject of holds and reserve books, I just love it that we get to borrow books from all these libraries around Montana so easily, just as if it was at this library.
Sure.
That's brilliant.
It's quick.
Yeah, and I like the space that they've set aside for you to go
Up
pick
here.
up your own off the shelf.
You know,
Very convenient.
You know what I noticed is a lack of foreign books in foreign languages.
Mm.
My daughter came back from a year in France and wanted to keep her
Yep.
French up, and we couldn't find anything.
Yep.
And I don't know, I mean, I'm thinking there are other people with other languages that they need books in, and I don't know how that's being addressed.
Yeah, I don't
And you would
know.
think with all this book exchange, it would be easy enough. But we would really stuck
And French of all languages, that should be
a common
very-
language.
Yeah.
Can you imagine for
Easily.
people who have an uncommon language?
Yeah.
So maybe just put that down as a question for the librarians, how access in foreign language.
How about readers' seating? That's the scattered or collective seating upstairs, really. It can include study carrels that you see on the south wall. It can include a little conversation area over there and reference in the newspaper area. Any thoughts about those? Yeah.
In the periodical area, there isn't enough seating.
Okay.
In fact, I would think there's far from enough seating.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I really like the seating in the library, but I have a little gripe. It's going to sound very petty, but I don't like it that I can't go into that fancy young adult area and sit down. I would like to sit in there.
Yeah, me too. I want to sit over in the children's area.
But they don't tell you can't go into the children's, do they? Just
I don't think so, no.
Make the seats really small.
And is it that you want to go because you like the design?
Yeah,
So
it's
maybe
really
the rest of the libraries
inviting.
should be as well designed.
Should be, exactly. Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, agree. Yeah, no doubt about it.
And I haven't been in the children's lately, but I'm assuming there's a lot of just like mats and
A lot of floor.
little spongy furniture that kids can
Yeah, there's a lot
flop
of,
around on.
I think the floor is pretty much usable space, and we were involved with the design of that years ago, and one of the concepts I had was the notion of creating the pea green couch. And so I wanted that couch along the outside wall to be pea green. And, you know, we're all familiar with the pea green boat. Well, that would have been the pea green couch. So, but yes, there needs to be, and I think there are, they've done a lot of work up there in the children's area, and it looks to me to be a pretty exciting place for a kid.
Lauren, speaking of reading seating, do you have any questions, or is there stuff you know about carrel spaces versus more upholstered, cushy seats? It's a different experience for me in sitting and reading a while.
There are, I don't think we have clear recommendations, but kind of varies from library to library. I was amazed, I got to tour the Seattle Central Library before it opened, and here were these wonderful, really expensive upholstered chairs. And now you go there and there's street people sitting in these things. But the notion, I think, is that some of our guidelines show that this library has way too few reader seats. Our guidelines say that they need to be in the 120 some area, and they probably have,
Well, they said 24.
yeah,
Wow.
they need 100 more seats up there. reader seats. That includes carrels. It includes comfortable seating. It includes all those forms of places where readers can sit down. Way underscaled here. Not enough. But I think we all like the variety of them. Study carrels, living room kind of seating, whatever else might be available. Karen Gonzalez here at the library she went off to a conference and there was this paper presented on this library concept in Denmark, I think it was. And they actually had seating where you can sit down, and it was the type where you could sit down and play music in this little thing that surrounded you.
Oh, you mean like
Audio.
Okay.
Yeah. So in a sense, there was another kind of seating. You sat down in these little semi-enclosures that wrapped around you, and you could read a book and play your music, which is interesting. Not something I'd necessarily do, but...
But how different is that than just someone having an iPod while they're reading?
Well, I guess the only difference would be that this is this library was a totally new concept. But ideally, that environment would allow you to control the sound so that that experience of that person would not be disrupting someone else. But this library had a pretty interesting different concept. It was set up so that could happen, you know. That wasn't a negative. Somebody could be playing music over there and you could hear it in other parts in the immediate area. So again, I think that plays back to the acoustical zoning of the library. That has to happen in a right kind of space. What else we got here? Elevators. I don't know how many of us have used the elevator in here. It's kind of a 2 to 3 person. If you got 5 people in there, it would be a very social experience, maybe more than that. So I think the elevator really needs to be bigger to meet ADA requirements and public access requirements. It's interesting, that same elevator is the one that's over on the staff side. And it's not nearly big enough to deal with carts and book carts and all that stuff that needs to happen. I mentioned this before, that the staff elevator is like a moving bulletin board. You go in there and the walls are covered with announcements and pictures of the staff's children and grandchildren, and it's whoa, cool. But again, elevator access. The elevators are old. They've done a major expensive upgrade on them, but they're still small and they're still old. So. And slow.
The public elevator has been historically down, 2, 3, 4, 5 days at a time, which really is an ADA sort of issue.
It's a major issue.
I like the way the Seattle Library sort of dispenses with the need for elevators.
Mm-hmm. Escalators and
And just,
ramping.
Continually be walking.
What I don't see on that signage in terms of like advertising what's going on in the library, you know how on Brooks a lot of restaurants have those electronic signs, or even Hellgate High School, it tells you what's happening that night, if there's a parent meeting or whatever. And whether it be a sign on this library, I don't know if Main Street or Front Street has enough traffic to warrant it, maybe in a different location in town, but or an electronic bulletin board that gets emailed to all the homes on the email list. See, I wish I received more notices from the library as to what was happening by email.
Okay.
And I think the database of the library doesn't have enough room for email.
That
I'm
might
not
be.
sure. Does anyone know about that? But it seems as if they have this database of all these subscribers, that they could utilize that, mentioning new books that just arrived at the library, or a website or a link where you can request new titles, or...
Constant Contact will do that for you, so it's really not a problem for you to have that software. You can
They have to have the web address, they have to have the email addresses of all the subscribers though to be able to
Yeah.
do that. But, so even if it's not an electronic message board outside,
Mhm.
but instead messages being sent to the home
Sure.
with maybe even links to news of the day or something, or,
One of the things I was interested in recently was that the Hood River, Oregon libraries closed because the voters did not approve a bond issue to support them. And you think about what happened in Polson, they did vote it there, but you can see what happens when the financial support goes away. Libraries close. It's just fact. But that's the kind of thing you'd want, you know, folks. The library in Hood River closed because they didn't support it. And, you know, just information, just to know that. It's pretty interesting. There is a little screen out, I noticed, just above Webb Alley here that kind of flashes some stuff.
but you have to be here to see it.
Yeah.
What if we put it like at the fairgrounds where it is at Malfunction Junction, and just put a little notice in there about the library every now and then, say, come to the library tonight, see such and such.
Events, advertising events.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just to remind people
That's a good idea.
that we're here.
That's a good way too.
I'll put in a plug though if I can. I would want to see these old-fashioned bulletin boards with just single sheet announcements disappear. I like
Mhm.
glancing at
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That'd be a great way to encourage folks to read or to come to the library. There's probably a lot of good ways to do that.
You know, I just want to look at information sharing. I see this gentleman who was saying he didn't have, an hour wasn't enough on the computer. And I'm thinking how he like is in desperate need for more computer time so he can get a job. And how if people knew, like for instance, we have an old laptop we don't use anymore, I gladly give it to him. If there was a way of sharing information other than like Craigslist, but some kind of community, if it's really going to be a community center, how can there be a listing of people who are willing to volunteer to help other people, like do a resume or learn to read. But that's really well maintained and active and not just a dead space with a year-old listing on it.
It's a nice idea. Yeah. One of the interesting things for me is the entry to the library. Eric and Don have just been to Salt Lake City. You go to, again, Minneapolis or Seattle. There are these places called kind of welcoming centers. You don't just come in and, where do I go from here? Do you have any ideas about a lobby, what it should be, what it could be, what's not working, what could be better? Your first, I think what we're trying to get at with this is, what's your first introduction to the library? What is that experience about?
If you come in the front door, you come into this space where there's stairs and there's really no indication that this is anything in particular. There's not a feel that this is some special place. You come in the back door, you kind of have to go through the gauntlet of the people who are just hanging out there waiting to get their computers, and you go through that, the back door has got that area where, you know, the discards and the giveaway books are, and they're oftentimes thrown around and there's people in there. I don't think we really have an entry.
No.
And if we don't have a parking lot anymore, it'll be hard to define what the true entry is. Because I hate these buildings where there's the grand entry, but no one uses it because it's not where you park or where the bus leaves you off. And then there's the back entry, and it's where what people actually use, but there's no grandeur to it.
Well, yeah, it's again Seattle. You know, there are two entries to the Seattle Library. And it's pretty much like here, where you've got two main streets going by, and the experience is a little bit different. But it would be very nice if there was one entry. One of the things that I've thought a little bit about is the notion of that there's some way, if we have to do an addition to this building, maybe there's a way to come into an atrium space. That atrium space allows you, pretty much like the Minneapolis library. One side is the library, the other side is all the public spaces, meeting spaces, computer support, all that stuff. So that any time that the libraries, they can operate on a different schedule. And that's an issue here. The meeting spaces are only accessible when the library is open. And so it would be, if it's going to be a true community center, it would be interesting to find a way that the community spaces are accessible separately from the library itself.
That's a great idea.
And what it becomes in the case of this building is that they've got a musician playing a guitar over here, but it's another kind of meeting space.
Well, that you asked before about do any of us find that the checkout area here is a meeting and greeting area, and none of us really responded. This would be free space for that.
Yeah. And of course,
without having to talk low murmur.
Yeah. This is again at the Minneapolis library. They have this is another kind of meeting space, and it accommodates 450 people in Minneapolis. Amazing. It's multi-story, 4 or 5 story. And it's not unlike, some of you have been here, the art museum here in Missoula. That's what that middle space is about. That's kind of the gathering, collecting atrium space where you branch off into the galleries that are quieter and more reflective. And that's the kind of thing, going back to this one, this is a great way to separate the new and the old, thinking that this building will be given a new life in some way. Good way to bring in daylight, and a good way to make a really interesting public entry.
Yeah, that's what we need. I mean, I don't know what to say about the entry here, the front presentation. It's just that it's so nondescript to me. I don't think it nearly expresses what a wonderful library this is.
Do you come in the back way, or do you come in?
I come in both ways.
Both ways. Anyone else? Both? Mostly everyone's both? Okay.
But they're both equally poor.
They're both equally poor, exactly. Yeah, they're both not what we would hope they would be. Exactly.
I know it's almost time we didn't get to restrooms.
Let's talk about it, yeah.
I remember when we were redesigning the children's area, I learned there was a separate child's restroom in the child's area. Is it just a single toilet?
I haven't been in there, Dennis.
There's boys and girls.
There's a boys and a girls, so
Separate.
two just single.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say I think that's wonderful. I remember when I learned that and parents were saying that they can still stay in the reading area and see their child go alone and come out, and none of this wandering all over the library by themselves to find a big bathroom, or the parent having to leave one child behind to take the other, or interrupt another child. So I don't know if the children's area is going to get redesigned at all, but that's
a nice factor.
Important feature.
One comment we heard is that restrooms shouldn't be off the main circulation either.
Which is kind of what they are up here on the main level.
Well, just so they're a little more discreet and
Yeah, you kind of drop out of the restroom and there you are,
Yeah.
the lobby, or if you want to call it that, yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that before too.
And you can probably see in there if you're in the right place.
Right.
So that's less than desirable, but
I thought my understanding was that this library would basically stay the same, and just the new wing would be.
well, no, I think, that's yet to be determined, but it makes a lot of sense that if we have to expand public meeting spaces, if we have to provide additional, this building really lacks adequate back of house, I would call it, tech services space. A loading dock space anymore. It's kind of disappeared. And so this building could take on a lot of those needs relative to that, give the staff a lot more workspace, give a lot more meeting space, create an auditorium. And the new building could be all the new stacks and reader seating and that sort of thing. So just looking at it in an abstract way for me, that's where you get to develop this wonderful dual functioning, where most of the meeting spaces are over here, public tool lending library, MCAT, whatever's over here is separated by an atrium and the main library, the new spaces and all the modern, more flexible. See, the problem we have here too is that these spaces upstairs are not very flexible. And so a strategy for a library has got to be to deal with change by having flexibility built into your building. For instance, again, the Minneapolis library has what's called raised accessible floors. And you just pick up a panel and you can run a wire anywhere.
Wow.
You can run a water line or a sewer line or a drain line anywhere. And that's where the cooling and heating comes from as well. Ultimate flexibility. You can do that from above as well as from below. Normally it's from below. From below makes it real easy because you don't have to run a stack down from the ceiling, a tree, to access electronic stuff. I can move that floor outlet over there if I want.
We also have to discuss landscaping at all. I know that the library went through trouble to create this little prairie grass area. Whether you had any thoughts of a roof garden or anything?
Well, that certainly can be a possibility.
Put it in the atrium.
Put it in the atrium. Yeah, you could actually have interior, which would be cool. You know, certainly the malls made a good use of that. It's a nice idea here because of we got winter conditions for 8 months. You know, summer's here, probably this year will be 2 months long, but it would be interesting to have the ability to go outside of a reading area with your book and sit outside and read in an area that says you haven't left the library, but you're outside.
Oh, and one other thought I had when you said just one main entrance instead of two. It seems as if the library is going to get into these laptop computers that people can just use as needed and then return before leaving, not check out. Then the security is going to have to be incredible.
And that's why the one, yeah. Because that gives you your, although Seattle obviously has got it figured out, but ideally you have one control point for people coming and going. That doesn't mean there's another way of getting into all these public meeting spaces. It just means that the library has to have a secure way. Donna, you?
I was just going to add your idea about rooftop garden, or maybe rooftop garden cafe.
Yep. Well, here's a thought. What if this new building in the parking lot was multi-story, which it probably will have to be, and on the south side there was some way to go out in this area. And Seattle obviously has done a great job with now coffees in the library, and we've got coffee here. Somehow if that outdoor area was associated with the cafe, could even be near the top of the building. But that'd be an incredible thing to go outside here and view the mountains and view the river and the city.
And the sunset.
And the sunsets and all those wonderful things, and make, for me, a successful library will have a variety of space where you can do those sorts of things. You can go outside. It's got to provide, I guess wrapping up here, I've never designed a library, but I sure love to. Because first of all, I'm really interested in daylighting, and my master's work was in that area, and I basically wrote a book about skylighting. But what if the library needs to accommodate a variety, offer as many and various experiences for the context of reading. The context of the interface with that information source. Whether that's a book or a laptop or whatever it is, the success of this library or any library would be in accommodating a variety of those conditions. And that makes a library a destination. Because I'm not going there for one relationship between me and, think back to the original libraries, the Laurentian Library and so on. They had control over the books. The books were secured and they were chained down, and there was very limited access. The monks had access, but the public didn't. Well, Gutenberg invented the press, and suddenly books are available. But still, books were kept behind secure, behind the desk. You had to ask for it. And then suddenly, and appropriately, books came out where you wander through the aisles and the stacks, and you've got ultimate access. Well, that's kind of how I think the seating and the context for you as an individual meeting up with that book. I think the success here will depend on designing that well and offering a lot of opportunity about how that occurs.
Various ways.
Various ways, yep.
You know what else we have to do? Somehow we have to manage to get an education campaign going so that what happened in Hood, Oregon, doesn't happen here. People need to realize that this is an important investment.
Well, it's exactly what the Polson people were doing. You know, there were articles in our paper, and I'm sure they went online, and I'm sure they were working really hard up there to get that. I believe it was a bond issue in Polson that there now is a library district created to support the library.
Oh, okay.
They didn't have that before. So it's an important lesson.
People in Missoula have been generous when, we've had bond issues for the library in the past.
Yeah, but we better not take it for granted.
You can't take it for granted, no.
People in Missoula are supportive of the library.
I think they realize how important it is. Well, I will end it there with our focus groups, and we'll be around at least for another 40 minutes. And be glad to talk to you individually, but that's the last of we'll end our structured portion of this public meeting here. And thank you all for your time, and it's been really nice talking to everybody. And there'll be, I think, one last public meeting where we'll be bringing all these ideas back together and probably show the public, all of you, some of the proposals we have for addressing the needs.
What's the time frame for getting this approved and breaking ground and all of that?
Well, the study is going to be done in the next couple of months. And then with that study, there'll be some talk about how funding might occur. And then there might be a committee that forms that's job is to sort of run with the idea of adding on to the library, a new library, whatever it is. To me, that seems like a way to go. Not to load the staff up with that kind of activity, but to find a way to have a public action committee, I guess, that kind of takes on the notion of securing funding and making it happen. You know, all of us would like to see this occur next year, but depending on how all that falls together, it might be 8 to 10 years.
How much money is involved?
Well, we don't know that yet.
Or like a range?
Oh, well, if you look at, and this is totally out of the picture, but Seattle and Minneapolis, there was 110, but that's ridiculous for us.
110 million.
$110 million. I would think that, I don't know, 20, 30 million without parking might be a possibility. And that's totally off the cuff. I don't even know how much space. Ideally, we would be building 3 times, we'd triple the size of this library. This is about 40,000 square feet. We need to add 80,000 at 200 and something dollars a square foot, so whatever the math is there. That sounds like 16 million to me, but that's where the numbers start to come up. And I'm just throwing numbers. Might be more, might be less. Because we really don't, well, we do know that the rules of thumb say this building needs to be 3 times as big. We need to add on 80,000 square feet. Just think what this would be like with 80,000. This is 40. There's about 25 upstairs, let's say. It's about 27, I think. What would a library be like that was 4 times a...
So how much of that would be additional book storage?
That's to be determined too. That's built into this rule of thumb.
Do the books have to increase by twice?
That would be depending on how the library projects its collection. You know, I think ideally most there aren't rules of thumb about how many books you need to have, because libraries tend to build their own collection around what they're about, and buildings are designed to accommodate that. So right now we don't have a good enough idea of what this library is wanting to do with its collection.
I'll just mention one thing that refers to this, perhaps. It was in the article, and I think today's paper, for those of you who may not have seen
Or
it.
Friday? Yeah, Friday.
Yesterday's. But there was mention that there isn't currently room for adding any books or any new acquisitions. They have to chuck an equal number.
I saw
So
that.
just by getting new acquisitions, the holdings would grow.
Yeah, because right now, as the article said, if a new book comes in, an old one's got to go away. It's got to go out of the collection.
And one thing that Warren mentioned when asked about how much it would cost, what he was giving was construction.
Yep.
That's not the whole picture.
Mhm.
There's furnishing and financing. And
Lot-
you can add 25
And
to
the
40%
Yeah.
to that just to cover all the soft costs associated with
So
it.
they'd be rehabbing this building too, right?
Yeah, and we don't, again, I don't have a good handle on that. Ideally, if it remains here, you don't have to buy new property. And that's a big cost. In an urban area, land prices are high. This is a valuable piece of property. Thanks very much. We'll be around if you want to have any other talks, but thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.